Okay, so today we're tackling a huge topic, organizational change. And we're going to do it by looking at one of the biggest professional groups out there, the National Association of Realtors. We're diving into a blueprint for how to bring an organization like that into the modern era. Let's jump right in.
And really, it all boils down to this one massive question. How in the world do you modernize an organization with over 1 million members? I mean, think about that. Even the smallest tweak can feel like turning a battleship. So where do you even start to make it more effective, more modern, more accountable? It's a huge challenge.
So, to really get a sense of just how big this challenge is, check out this number 90 plus. That's how many committees, advisory boards, and work groups were part of NAR's governance system until just recently. Can you imagine? Over 90? That's where the complexity really starts. And that's where our story really begins. Right, and all that complexity, it's not just a logistical headache. It creates a real perception problem. For a lot of the members, the very people the organization is supposed to serve, the whole governance structure has felt, well, kind of murky. It's even earned the nickname the black box. And this quote, it just nails the feeling, right? It perfectly captures what members have been experiencing when decisions just kind of emerge from this black box without any clear process. It's a surefire way to erode trust. You start to feel completely disconnected from the leadership of your own organization. And hey, this isn't just about hurt feelings. It has real, tangible consequences. You get all these groups, and suddenly responsibilities start to overlap. What does that lead to? Slower decision-making, for one. And here's the real irony. Having more committees can actually weaken the impact of any single member's voice. It gets diluted in all that noise. Okay, but it's not all bad news. Things are actually starting to change. NAR has recently taken what everyone is calling a small, but definitely welcome, first step to try and fix some of these problems. And this first change is something you can actually point to. They got rid of 8 of those governance groups. Now look, is 8 out of 90 plus a huge number? Not really. But it's a signal. It shows they're listening. It's a modest start for sure, but it's a start. It's an admission that, hey, maybe the old way isn't the best way anymore. And this quote here really captures the vibe from the members right now. You could call it cautious optimism. They're glad to hear the right words about making changes. They appreciate the gesture, but now they're leaning forward, watching and waiting. They want to see real action follow those words. And that's really the heart of the matter, isn't it? That first step was great, it was necessary, but it's not enough, not by a long shot. When you're dealing with a system this big and this tangled, you need more than a small step, especially when the real estate industry itself is changing at lightning speed. You see, just cutting a few committees doesn't really get to the root of the problem. You've still got these deeper issues lingering. You've got the lack of transparency, the need for the organization to be way more agile, and this huge one, the fact that many of the industry's top players, the real movers and shakers, aren't even at the table. And this right here explains exactly why that happens. I mean, think about it. The people who are deep in the trenches, the top brokerage owners, the leaders who live and breathe this market every day, they're often shut out of governance. And why is that? It's because the system asks for these insane time commitments and requires a ton of in-person travel. For a busy leader, that's just not feasible. So, okay, we've laid out the problems. How do you actually fix this? Well, now let's get into the good stuff, the blueprint for what a truly modern NAR could look like. It's all about completely rethinking how members get involved and how the big decisions get made. All right, so the proposed plan really stands on 4 main pillars. Let's break them down. First, you've got to use technology to crowdsource ideas from way more members. Second, you need a serious commitment to transparency. Third, you have to find flexible ways for those top-tier pros to actually get involved. And fourth, it's time to blow up the old clunky conference model and build something better. And a really cool idea here is something called informal governance. What does that mean? Basically, you don't need to add more committees to get more feedback. Instead, you use modern tools, things like online forums, quick surveys, to hear from thousands and thousands of members. This makes the official committees way smarter without making the whole thing even more bloated. And this point is it's absolutely crucial. Transparency isn't just a buzzword. It's not a PR strategy where you just send out more newsletters. No, it's about peeling back the curtain and showing members, Here's how we make decisions, and here's how your feedback actually influence the outcome. That, right there, is how you build trust that actually lasts.
And just look at this table. It does a great job of showing how big of a change this could be, especially with the conferences. So instead of these super long, super expensive events that try to be everything to everyone, picture this, a focused 3-day format. You'd have specific tracks for different roles, agents, brokers, MLS folks, and you'd gather a ton of input before anyone even gets on a plane. So the time you spend together in person is way more productive and valuable. It just makes so much sense.
Okay, so let's step back for a second. Why does any of this really matter? This isn't just about, tidying up the org chart or making people feel included. This is way bigger. This is about the entire future of the organization. Here's the bottom line. The real estate world is changing at a dizzying speed. It's modernizing like crazy. So if NAR wants to stay in a leadership position, if it wants to remain relevant, its own internal engine can't be a clunky old steam train while the rest of the world is building bullet trains. It has to be just as fast, just as agile, and just as transparent as the market it's supposed to be leading. You know that old saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step? Well, that's exactly where we are. Getting rid of those 8 committees? That was a good step, a necessary step. But it's just that. It's the very first step on what needs to be a much, much longer journey. And so, that really leaves us with the big question hanging in the air. NAR has taken that first step. The journey has begun. So what happens next? What bold, innovative moves are they going to make to truly rebuild their governance for the 21st century? You can bet the entire industry has its eyes peeled, waiting to find out.